Yo, what's good? It's Artrich from No Agony, and I'm going to show you how you can make a plucky sample for artists like GLAIVE, ericdoa, and MIDWXST. The sample sounds like this. Alright, so the first sound is a serum sound by Rodmated called Shiro, and it's a pluck. The pattern goes like this. And then it just repeats. But yeah, repetitive chords are really good. So if you can see here, the top like notes is just the same, and it gives like that kind of catchy, really easy to follow along vibe. And the chord progression is also very simple. I mean, it's just a few root notes, but it starts in the minor scale. The minor chord then goes up to the third chord, and then the fourth chord, and then back down. This 2 bars repeats over, and then just goes down instead of up, down to the 6th chord in the scale, and then just repeats over again. And so the sounds I put on the first sound, just a simple phaser to give it some movement, and then just 2 EQs. I always put like, or most of the time I put first 1 EQ to cut out like lows and highs that are unnecessary, and then another EQ to boost some parts that I thought needed more. I'll show how it sounds with and without. This is with. And this is without. And yeah, I think with it will just like leave more space for the other melodies as well as the bass. Going into the second sound is another layer for the first sound. Just a simple pluck, goes the same chord, sounds like this. It sounds like this. So the sounds on that is again just this time a chorus to kind of widen it a bit as well as give it some more texture, and then just same EQs boosting similar places to give it more sound. This is how it sounds with. Is without. Very slight changes, but it helps a lot with freeing up space for the bass and just giving it more space for other sounds. The next sound in the intro is another serum sound, and this is a pluck in the Key Kelly Extreme Serum Bank, and it goes like this. So the pattern in this goes like this. It looks kind of advanced, but it's not that advanced really. But yeah, it's quite simple. You can see there's a lot of repeating part if you break it down and just look at it more simplistic, I guess. This part just repeats over and over because then it gets catchy because you remember each part and you expect it to come, and then it makes it catchy. And even here you can see that there's similarities as well. This note is just pushed a bit forward, and we're skipping this one, but this one stays still the same notes to carry movement. Then just a few like top ones that I added from this part to give that slight bit of variation, but still having that catchy feel to it, and then just repeats. The sound processing here is some chorus, some delay, some vintage, reverb, and another EQ. This is what it sounds like without. Very dry and doesn't have too much movement. With these sounds, it sounds like this. A bit more ambient, sits in the back, and also carries a lot more movement, way smoother. So moving on to the second part, or next set of 8 bars, we got this sound, which is a pluck again from a Rodmated kit, and it goes like this. Very simple, super simple. Let me show the pattern. Super simple. Just like 2 notes and then an octave. Just to carry the bounce and carry the movement, make the sample go forward, kind of, and add, like fill out some space. Sound processing, super simple as well. Some very slight phaser, and then another EQ. You can barely hear the difference without it. But it just tucks it a bit more and makes it sound a bit more clean, even if it's very slight. So the next sound, another pluck from a Shinju bank this time. And I can recommend Shinju banks for styles like this because it has a really like kind of retro vibe to it. There's a lot of textures on the sounds, which gives this really hyper poppy kind of feel to it. The pluck sounds like this. Let me show the pattern. Super simple again. Like you just want a lot of melodies that are simple but leave space for each other. You see like there's room in here which like leaves space for maybe this sound to come there and this sound to fill up like the space in between. It just like gives this kind of call and response thing between the melodies and makes them flow together really well. Got the 5th in the chord, so the top note of the basic triad chord basically. And then it just goes down, so a slight change, and then it goes up 2 notes in the scale later, and it goes like this. and then it goes back. Just adds that little extra layer, you know, makes the sample feel fresh when it moves from certain parts in the arrangement. And yeah, again, super simple sound processing here as well. Just an EQ to get rid of some of the lows, boost some of the highs, and a vintage verb again to make it more smooth. That's how it sounds without it. Just a bit more rough and like not as ambient. The next sound is the really catchy lead, which I have an automation, which I can show as well. Pattern is probably the most advanced in this one, but even here is super simple. You can see like this part is just repeating over and over with change up, but the change up even repeats itself as well. So the next layer is a lead sound again from Shinju Bank. Get his banks if you want to make stuff like this, and it sounds like this. Kind of rough higher ends, but it is like perfect for the style. Pattern goes like this. It looks quite advanced, but it's really quite simple because it's just like one bar that duplicates over, and then it's another bar that duplicates over. And yeah, it kind of carries like movement, but even this is just an octave of this, so it's the same note again, then it just goes down here. The change up here is just like these two notes go up an octave and have this kind of stutter note to give it some unique kind of bounce compared to the first part to kind of add energy. Because you want to keep it simple, but still like keep adding energy as it goes, because that's how we get that like real movement going. And yeah, other than that, like even this part repeats over here, as you can see. It is super simple. All of this is just these notes, just like with a different octave in the start and the starting notes. And yeah, as you can see, I put an automation here, and it's just an EQ automation that makes the sound kind of slide in and then do this little stop and then go up into the drop, because it gives it a really nice transition sound. But yeah, with that automation, it sounds like this. And this other sound processing goes like this, just a chorus to widen it, very slow, like low mix level here, 15%, like barely changed anything, but gives that slide texture, you know, and make it sound like a bit more processed and fit in the sample a bit more. And then a flanges, again, just to kind of widen a bit, 38%. I didn't want to add too much reverb on this sound because I wanted to have that kind of rough feeling, and then you can stereo with chorus and flanges, for example, instead of reverb. EQ again, just like getting rid of some of the lows, as well as boosting some of the highs and getting rid of the real highs as well. Without it sounds like this. And with. So yeah, just slight changes. Next sound is another lead sound by Shinju. The pattern goes like this. Very catchy, and it has these pauses for the other sounds, and these pauses really make it catchy because you're anticipating a response to the first thing. And this goes back to what I was saying about response, or call and response melodies, because this part feels like it's calling out, then it feels like it's responding, and then it's calling again, and it's responding again. So it flows very nice, and it also leaves spaces for other melodies to come in as well. Again, it's not super advanced. There's like just a few notes and then like a little slide note or a strum note to give it some movement. And then it goes over here. It has a little change up, just like an octave here, and another note in between. So I would like adding another note here and then just an octave, and you got the second pattern pretty much. It's just about hopping it over and making a slight change, because then it's like repetitive but still unique, and then it's really catchy because of that, because you always like kind of know what's going to come, but you give it a slight change, makes it very catchy. The sound processing goes like this, just an EQ again, getting rid of the lows again, leave space for the bass, boosting some highs and getting rid of the unnecessary highs as well. Vintage verb, just to make it like a bit more spacey, because the other lead sound wasn't, so by making this a bit more like spacey and ambient and stuff, you leave space for the other leads, so they complement each other instead of fighting for the same space. And then I added the shaper box with a side chained volume on it, just to like give some room for the other lead, and that comes at the beginning of the bar and the other sounds, and also kind of give it like this kind of moving sound, which is really nice. And then just a pan man with 8 bars going back and forth. I usually go for the minor movement preset and basic panning, and then I change it to usually 8 bars and change the width of it. But yeah, without effects, it sounds like this. With it sounds like this. So you can clearly hear how much movement the pan man and the shaper box is given, as well as the vintage verb making more ambient, and as well as the EQ. I also put a bit more stereo, again to give more space for the other leads so they don't fight for the same space in the mix. The last sound is the bass, probably the simplest layer in the entire melody. It just follows the root notes of the chords, and it sounds like this. On this, I just put an EQ because I didn't want the highs on this. I just wanted the lows to fill out the missing piece, like space in the sample mix. And I cut the relows as well because it's unnecessary and it's taking up headroom in the mix and stuff. So I like to do that, cut the lowest points of the sound. Not so much so that it changes the sound, but just like the slight bit here that doesn't really affect how the sound sounds, just takes up space. That's pretty much everything. On the master, I just put an EQ to boost or to get rid of some of the lows that I thought was too much and some of the mids that I thought was too much as well. Just a slight change. I show how it would sound without it. And with like this. As you can hear, it's barely like any difference, but I just thought there was some frequencies here that wasn't necessary, as well as the lows. And yeah, then I just took down the volume because I like my master on the samples to hit between -6 and -3 decibels, because then it is like it never clips or anything. If it's too loud when someone gets the sample, they can just lower the volume. It's not too quiet either, so that when people listen to it, they just skip because it doesn't hit, you know. For me, I like it to have my samples like between -6 and -3 decibels. But yeah, that's everything. So go make some heat now. If y'all liked it, tutorial, make sure to leave a like and comment what you want to see next, because the support motivates us a lot and we really want to make content that you guys want as well, so make sure to do that. And yeah, if you guys want loops like this or any other style, we got a loop channel where we post every Sunday. You can go and check that out, and also we post tutorials like this every Thursday.